full of stats.
Engage Burnham.
I'm your new wingman.
We will win because we have.
Welcome to CommLink.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another edition of CommLink Reacts. I'm Stubb, and as always, I'm joined by Silvius. How you doing today?
Doing good, man. How are you?
Yeah, I'm doing okay, man. We off air. We just finished watching the most recent Elimination Chamber. Felt like it was a good show, and now we're ready to take a look at some Star Citizen goodness. We've got Star Citizen Live. And they're going to be talking distribution centers, which we've been talking about a lot lately, and the Star Citizen community at large has been talking about. So this should be fun. I'm looking forward to seeing and hearing more about what's probably going to be one of the most significant chunks of 323 as far as the new gameplay content being added goes.
Yeah, our last episode about distribution centers seemed to get some good traction and good comments, conversation going on and stuff. So hopefully it can continue here, and hopefully this is going to answer some of the questions we had last week.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed.
All right. Take it away, Jared.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Star Citizen Live, our weekly behind-the-scenes discussion with developers about the making of Star Citizen Squadron 42. I'm your host, Posh Jared Huckabee. I just learned that word, Posh.
I don't know why Discord's been weird lately.
Posh. On the show this week, we have two members from our Steam development team talking about distribution centers, the big, giant microcosms of all FPS-related gameplay in the persistent universe that are coming online in Alpha 3.23.
I need that Drake tape.
I like that word, microcosm. I forgot that I fed it to you during the ISC interview, and then I used
a lot of the things he has on the set there.
I doubled down on microcosm, and then one of the comments was like, "What the is microcosm?" And I'm like, "Look it up." So let's get to our guests. We've got John and James. John and James, how you doing?
Hello.
Hey, John and James.
Every show is somebody's first show. So we're going to take a few minutes and introduce yourselves, tell everybody who you are and what you do. James, you're in seat number 1, so we'll start with you.
One.
James, who are you? What do you do for Star Citizen?
I am James Kay. I am the lead content designer at CIG. We work entirely on the PU, mostly around missions, but also there's some...
He was the one that seemed so very excited that distribution centers are nearly done on ISC recently.
Stuff behind the scenes to, I guess, make stuff work, generally.
You said
James is fucking done with distribution centers.
Yeah, we've got other designers. We've got other lead designers. But I'm the lead content
You're the only lead content designer. Yeah. I think curious, I looked at it. I think there's only 3 people in the company that have the word content in their title. Yeah, okay. I'm one of them too.
Are you?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
Did you know that? Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Cool.
The
other one's Sean Tracy. Can't be perfect. Why am I giving Sean Tracy trash? Oh, because Forrest is here. John, tell everybody who you are and what you do for Star Citizen.
So hello again, my name is John Griffiths. I'm lead environment artist for EU Sandbox 2, and I've been, I suppose, guiding the ship that is distribution centres into existence, and that's basically been what I've been doing. Yeah.
Reddit, you heard it here first. Distribution centres are a ship, so we'll get stats on that immediately.
Just it's one on the ground that's huge, that doesn't move, but lots going on.
Okay. You've been working on distribution centers probably as close to the beginning as possible. Am I right? Everybody, there's this thing in development called the product owner. It's the person that's just kind of like, if somebody else isn't around, ask this person, and if a decision has to be made real quickly, go with what this person says until we can all think about it. Are you the product owner for distribution?
I am the product owner for DCs. Yeah.
We've never talked about this role, this product owner role, on the show before. What did I get it right? Is there something I left out about what a product owner does?
Yeah, it's a. Is there someone I can speak to about DCs, and they're not on my direct team? They the message gets passed on, my name gets passed to them, and then they come into my inbox or on Teams or what have you, and then I have to try and answer whatever question they have. And then at that point, if I can't answer it, I can at least recommend people to go to. But I know the location names, I know what's at each location, I'm the know-it-all to some degree for DCs, which is quite good because, I'm quite, reactive in, I suppose, conversation when stuff needs figuring out quickly. I know where the problem is, but it also means that I have a lot of information in my brain about this thing, and then once it goes out, I can forget all of that.
I was going to say, keep digging, John. It's just, it's the minute it goes out, patch goes out, it's like, okay, on to the next thing. And
well, I should update the Confluence, and then,
There goes the space cow.
I don't think I've seen an updated Confluence since
What's your name, Daisy?
2014. But
Oh, Daisy.
all right, so today's show is a Q&A show. That's where we basically put a thread up on Spectrum, which is our bespoke communications platform available at robertspacindustries.com. We let you submit your questions and then vote up on which ones you wanted to see answered the most. I let John and James collect the questions that they felt they were most capable of answering. As always, some questions just don't have answers at certain points in development. We like to call it, that's a problem for future us and whatever, but we did collect the questions that we felt we could answer today. And so we'll jump into those. So right off the bat,
here we go.
Here's a pretty. I like the contentious attitude in this. I'm going to try to read this the way I think this was written. Are these going to be just another copy paste like we have seen with bunkers, or can we expect to see actual variety in the building designs?
Asking the real questions.
Yes, I'll take
It's a
that
fair one.
So, yes and no.
It's a little snarky.
So the main form,
Yes and
the
no.
main structure,
Oh, no.
that is going to look the same, but there are feathering assets around each DC to make them all unique, I suppose. Some are going to have quite a large footprint. I mean, it's a big thing on the ground anyway, but there's going to be a bit more of a spread on some of them, and some of them are going to be smaller. But yes, visually, they will be different from the exterior so that you do feel like you're going to a different place each time.
Okay.
Also, we have factions that own each one, and their branding will be on the building. The name of the place will be different. You'll go into the lobby and the brand, that corporate facing area is going to be branded to that faction. So that will be quite novel, which would be nice. But they are not just a copy and paste of the same. Well, even though I just said that, they do feel different.
Which one is it?
When you're flying to
Right.
them, and also they are, some of them are where they are on the on planets. They're next to.
Honestly, it sounds like they
interesting
mostly are with some
features, so
minor
hopefully
detail
you'll
differences.
Get a recognition of,
Like
this is the place on
signage.
Stanton 1 because it's next to this
Yeah.
lovely sea and the sun never goes down. Oh, I know the one you're talking about, I'll meet you there, type of thing, which will be, something that we actually thought about rather than just going.
But also,
one
we
here, one
do
here,
need to
one
keep in mind this is our
You say
first
Stanton
batch
when you mean
of
her.
distribution centers, even if they do end up looking very similar
Yes,
throughout.
sorry.
Stanton,
There's this thing.
that doesn't mean it's
here's the
necessarily
little
going to be the
actual
case in
behind-the-scenes truth
other
stuff.
parts of the game down the road.
None of the developers here,
Yeah.
there's 1100, 1200, actually know the names of the planets. They all refer to them as Stanton 1, Stanton 1B, Stanton 2, Stanton 3, and it's like I have spent a decade at this place, like trying to suss this out. You mean this planet, right? And I'm like, this, it's because there's development. It's,
I would say that the file path is Stanton plus a number. That's why I know it. But on Hurston,
I wonder if they'll be in Pyro.
Yeah, they'll be released.
yeah. So let's talk about that. One of the
I would
questions.
imagine
so,
we'll
right?
do it now.
Yeah, but they
people
haven't,
have
like,
asked where these are going.
specifically said that they will be.
323.
Right.
I think there's approximately 13-ish.
There
Where
might
are
not
they
be
going?
any
Is it
added
just
yet
planets?
for them
Is
to
it
even
planets
show,
and
you know?
moons?
So
Yeah.
in this initial release,
He just
it
said
would be
13 though.
planets.
Yeah.
We
I
That's,
thought like
that's more than we
4.
were predicting.
considered having
Yeah,
them on
yeah.
moons.
Yeah.
But I would,
I think I said
due to
5 as a
time
stretch.
constraints,
It's 13.
we won't be releasing initially on moons. This is just because we need. Well, I believe that the the wings should be different when you're in a like an airless atmosphere.
Right.
You know, the way you're interacting with cargo and moving things around in zero G is going to be different to when you're in gravity. So because we don't have those things yet, we won't be releasing them yet. But so for the moment, for this release, planets only.
Right, and when you say planets,
Only
I assume that
planets.
we can take out Crusader and we can
For
take
now.
out ArcCorp. Crusader because there is no surface that we can reach, and
So
ArcCorp
Microtech and
because it's not made in the same way that Hearst did in Microtech. So these are 13 split amongst Hurston and
It would be cool to
Microtech
see a
for
floating one
323.
around ores and
Yeah, that would be cool.
Can we expect missions at
Probably
distribution centers
eventually, right?
to tie into other professions like salvage,
Yeah, probably.
mining, medical, etc., either in 323 or down the line in future patches?
I think down the line, yeah, certainly. I think distribution centers are obviously an enormous location, and they needn't just stand alone on the surface. There's no reason why potentially in the future they could have outlying structures that supply them and house the people that work there. So they could be very large, and with a large population, there's a lot of scope for lots of different gameplay. So like salvaging, like mining, expanding the delivery missions and the hauling missions, so they have more variety, more scope. There's tons of stuff to do as well. So it's just like, for me, the 323 release of distribution centers, it's like them in their most basic form. You know, this is where we start. Where we take it in the future, it's, yeah, there's so much.
Yeah, it's the first iteration. We were talking about this before the show. Actually, we were talking about ideas like the distribution center was raided, and like they now don't have the ore that they were supposed to have in stock in order to fulfill an order. So they might send you out to go mine this ore and bring it back, and we're just going to put it in the box and pretend like it was always there. Or maybe the distribution center can crank out some kind of detritus, not toxic waste, but some kind of refuse that then needs to be broken down. Like, hey, we could sure use help. Go in the back and and using salvage, break down all this excess garbage that we're producing through whatever. It's like there's definitely opportunities to come up with additional mission types and have it tie into other professions in the future. But for 323, it's basically the four kind of areas we talked about. The Can you remember what they were?
Well, there's the hauling. That's the major one. They're distribution centers after all, so they tie into this new hauling loop. So you're taking massive quantities of cargo between different places. There's all the various.
I'm looking forward
what you
to
might
that.
call the courier, like the box.
Yeah.
delivery
Finally running
missions.
some cargo.
We're hoping to rework those somewhat. So you're more of a FedEx driver than you are now. So there's scope for those. There's scope for delivery missions.
Really going to start beating up people's
Just
packages,
internally.
huh?
These distribution
FedEx,
centers
look
are
out.
so large, you can have delivery missions just inside them. Like
Shit's
taking
coming
the
in
cargo
broken.
from, like, say, the storage room to the warehouse to the freight terminal to like a little base, like on the perimeters of the center. So there's tons and tons of scope for just moving stuff around, distributing stuff within the center. You might say.
Oh, you said the word. Yeah, I think there's
these things must be a lot
There's a lot
bigger
of
than what
focus
I'm imagining.
right now
Yeah.
on combat. And stuff, not just with distribution centers and the missions, but master modes and stuff like this. This happens naturally. But 323 is, there's no secret. This is the patch where we bring a whole bunch of stuff from Squadron over and bring it into the PU. And I don't think I'm telling any tales out of school to say that a lot of Squadron is very combat, focused. So a lot of these features are going to be very combat focused. Big questions, after yesterday's Master Modes episode, we knew they were coming. So, how does this apply to non-combat ships? There is a healthy and a vibrant and I think very, I don't know, thirsty is not the right word since that has a different connotation, but very hungry type of Star Citizen out there who's looking for more non-combat oriented things to do in the PV.
They're
So I
bricked
think
up
there's
for
a
it,
lot- there's a
Jared. Just
big
say it.
hope that distribution centers, yes, we'll have some of that in 323, but going forward beyond 323 might evolve to involve more non-combat opportunities. And of course, there were big questions about how PvP and PvE will intermix and everything, and we'll get to that here in a bit. But I think there's a very healthy calling for that right now. And I say this as there's an enormous Idris event going on right now where you can battle and potentially
Idris
capture
event.
the Idris. You should check that out. Go to the robertspaceindustrials.com website and read all about that if you haven't already, because that just started.
Checked
just
out
before the
5
show.
different servers last night.
But yeah,
No Idris.
it's obviously a lot of things are very combat focused right now. But I just want to. I think there's still a very healthy portion of people who are like, I would like to be able to play this game without ever firing a gun if possible. And there's still lots of things we can do to support that and to expand that. Next question. I had never thought about this, but this is kind of obvious. Are abandoned or derelict distribution centers planned?
Pyro.
No.
Not at the moment.
Pyro.
But I think
No?
going on the
Okay.
fact that there are rundown or abandoned versions of other locations, there's no reason why we couldn't have versions of the DCs which were in the same category.
Yeah.
And then you could then have
Okay.
DCs in like pirate systems like Pyro, for example, where they are kind of up for, maybe it's a bit of a capture the flag type episode on it, but with players, that would be quite cool to have.
Yeah,
Who owns
that
this
sounds like
distribution
fun.
Center? Does it change hands a lot? Are you then competing with kind of more established factions in the game? That would be pretty great. But yeah, right now we haven't got plans to do that, but I don't see why we shouldn't do that in the future.
So right now it sounds like
You're right,
no
we do make
DCs in
abandoned or
Pyro.
derelict versions of everything else. It's just, I don't know, things, these brand new things look cool, and then you rough them up and you mess them up, and they just seem just that much more real. So I would be very surprised if the call isn't made at some point.
Yeah, I think, in the first release of anything, he says, thinking about Pyro right now, you need an occupied version. And then when you have that, it's kind of like you've done all the setup already, you're just making new overlays, which then dress it in a certain way. So, the hardest part is the initial release, what we want, but then after that, it's still work to get these things done, but it's not, I suppose, as much work. Hopefully,
I don't know. It's I've seen that when they were making the derelict ships, it's a lot of work to break them up in a way that's not just crap, to be completely fair.
Yeah, I suppose with ships though, it's different because the ship is formed and they have to unform it. Whereas with us, our base rooms already exist. It's just new dressing on top of them.
You put some holes in there.
Yeah.
One of the things that got, when we were showing it at CitizenCon, one of the things that really came through were there are roads in some of these things. Roads have been this, when we talk about like the top 10 oldest questions that keep coming up over and over again over the year, roads are one of the big ones. It's, we do have ground vehicles and they're all kind of off-roaders right now. This question says, in the future, is it planned to have distribution centers connected by a road network with smaller outposts or settlements, possibly several kilometers away from in their surroundings?
That would be
Yeah,
cool.
I don't see why not.
Yeah.
I don't think. Well, I mean, who knows? It could be that there's a motorway from one to the next, but I think it depends on what the next, location is. If that's a big town or what have you, then maybe you have roads within it, but then it kind of turns into dirt roads and then blends back into the DCs or something like that. It would be cool to have, this is where the DC is, and then 5 clicks this way, there's a small town, 5 clicks this way, it's like an ore depository or something, and then you've got a kind of a link there you could just spend your time just going between the 3 places.
Let's do it.
Grabbing
Put
the
it
cash,
in.
as it were. But yeah, I don't see why not in the future to have roads. It was interesting, when I did the presentation.
The future's now, baby. Let's go.
Yeah, got a big woo for roads, and I was kind of like, okay, didn't know this was a thing. So I'm looking forward to when people, start doing more races, and you actually then have to go through. Maybe you have to go into the. Oh wait, hold on. No, Sam said don't get vehicles in there. So yeah, maybe you can incorporate some DCs into those races, and then have fun at getting around those corners quickly is all I'm going to say.
Next question here is a bit farther out for stuff, but we'll ask it and see what we get. Will the distribution centers ever be able to be operated and or held by organizations?
Oh, I mean, in the future, I think there's definitely opportunity.
Kind of what
for
he just
that.
talked about with the capture
You
the flag
could have it
analogy
so
with Pyro.
that the
Yeah.
organization that operates it is just the initial owner of the location, and then really it could potentially just come down to manpower who can actually defend it. Who owns it is just like, well, who's got the biggest gun?
Yeah, I think if I can, when they talk about operate though, I mean like generate missions or is there besides just I want to hold this and nobody else can have it?
Yeah.
Is there room here for the idea that these might be operable? That these might benefit an organization?
I think, I mean, one thing that the resource network might eventually lead into is the opportunity to generate stuff. The distribution center, it could, for example, if it's a Grey Cat distribution center, it could potentially manufacture things. There's no reason why not. So if there's
no reason why
organization
not
out there which
quote
Then let's do it.
essentially owns this facility, then they would have the de facto rights to manufacture that stuff. But then that kind of bleeds into the question of, well, where do they get the materials from? You can't manufacture things out of thin air. So you need a supply chain, and obviously you need these things that you do manufacture, they need to go somewhere. So you need a buyer. So it's this whole supply chain. You're just owning the distribution center is just like one piece of the puzzle.
Kind of sounds like player economy.
We're doing a bit of theory crafting here right now.
Yep.
We love theory
the
crafting,
nickel
Jared.
version of the answer is that there's no plan for it at this point. But we do this. We do the same theory crafting. That's where all ideas start from. That's where all everything that gets put on the calendar, everything that gets put into development, starts with people like us in our room going, well, what if we did this? And wouldn't it be cool if we did this? And then somebody says, okay, somebody taps a producer and a potential product owner and says, all right, build me out a schedule and let's see how much time that would take, how many resources it would take, and then you make the decision about whether that's going to go into active. I know that there are. There are some people who don't like the theory crafting or whatnot, and there are some people like we're in year 12 or something, and theory crafting. It's because this thing goes. It's not like it's Star Citizen not working towards an end. There's not a point where it's like, okay, it's done, it's gone. Like this thing just keeps going. It just keeps building and everything. So
Star
I really
Citizen
like
is
that
forever.
the theory crafting. It doesn't stop. There's always
Thing just
that
goes.
maybe we can work towards this, and these things help us know what we're working towards. Because one of the other things I really like about working in this place, I'm just going to go off on a tangent here for a second, is I love that we're never afraid of the better idea. So there are plenty of times in our history where we thought we were doing this, like this was the plan, and then somebody in a random conversation is theory crafting, and what if we did this? And it goes, oh, well, that's way cooler than what we were doing. And it's like, well, let's do that instead and whatnot. I love that about this place. So, just as my 5 cents to anybody that's out there that's like, oh, they're just theory crafting, whatever. That's where all the best ideas are birthed. And you guys do it when I watch your YouTube videos and your streams, and we do it too. When I say
Jared.
there's no difference between you and us, I mean that. Will the new UGFs replace or be in addition to existing bunkers? Well, we already know that. That's in addition. The existing.
Yeah, they will remain, and DCs will just be there as well.
It's one of the reasons we replaced the name. Like we were calling these new underground facilities for a while, and it's like, well, it just got confusing. People thought they would replace it. No, we named them because these are in addition. All right, we talked about raids.
Get back to 323.
We talked about raids a little bit at CitizenCon. We mentioned it at the end of the thing. When we talk about the future of
This is a bunch of future talk.
What can you tell us about raids? What's known?
Great question. Well, what's known is we want them to be the end game, you know. So you've done the story or what have you. You've explored your career as much as you want to, and then you can dip into these end game missions, as it were. And this is where you're going to find super rare loot or super high value items, and they're going to take place at DCs which are owned by big corporations or big brands or big factions. And we like you said before, it was they were the new UGFs, underground facilities, and we still have the idea of some of them, they do go underground, and that's where the raid takes place. So not only do you have to fight your way through the airspace of the DC, then realise it's too hot, so land, get your ground vehicles out and approach on foot. You've got to get into the thing and then down into the raid. So they're going to be difficult. They're going to be, expect you to be, A-game people going in. You have your squad all kitted out. Everyone has a role to play.
AI is
when
functioning.
the resource network comes online, you're going to have to kind of work strategically. I can't really say
All
the
he's
words,
saying right now only matters with
to
AI.
try and
works.
get in, which is going to be great. And then what happens when you're in there and reinforcements are getting called in, but you've disabled everything, so it's actually even harder for you to get out. We want it to be tough, but we also want you to be rewarded.
Sounds like a
for
lot of
doing
fun,
it
though,
as well.
in theory.
So that's kind of the general overview that we want. We now have to go and do that.
I was gonna say, I want to be real.
Sounds
quick.
like raids
This is
are
not
just
a
kind of like an
2024
idea
thing. Like anybody's,
they've had.
Raids
It's
are
not
not a
like
2024
anything
thing.
they've
It's on the
started work
calendar
on.
for 2024, and don't even ask me beyond that. It's like, what's the point?
Not on the calendar for
but there's
2024.
this-
So
As
we've got confirmation
Star
on
Citizen
that.
continues to develop, as we continue to harden the systems, and it becomes closer and closer to the game that we want it to be. We're going to continuously ask ourselves these MMO-related questions, like we don't want every trapping of every MMO that you ever see out there. We're not trying to be every single game that's ever once, but there are certain tenets and there are certain tropes, if you will, of an MMO space that it's that interest us, that we like and stuff like this. And I can see us trying a few of them. I mean, organizations are just guilds by another name, and stuff like that. So it's
Sure.
It's not every MMO trope is bad. Some of them are expected. Some of them are frankly necessary to achieve the experience that we want. Raids will be an interesting experiment for us when that time comes, because we don't have health bar, the traditional, a lot of the traditional, class systems and stuff like that. So it'll be an interesting experiment when that time comes, and I'm looking forward to us trying it. Will it work? Will it not work?
Yeah.
Hey, maybe it's going to be a hover mode, maybe it's going to be a master mode. It's like you don't know. It's I like that we try things. So, but again, that's not a 2024 thing. Don't.
Yeah, I think additionally to that is I've been harping on about how big these things are on the ground for quite a while, and I just don't think anyone realises how big they are. So I'm really looking forward to them going out.
We haven't
and
been to
people
them
go,
yet.
Oh, it was telling
also
the truth
you
this whole time.
Yeah.
But
Haven't
if you
shown us a
think
lot of things for like scale
some of the missions
comparison.
that they're going to release with are going
Yeah.
to be difficult, and you think, okay,
Want us to
so
get a sense of the scale?
this is
Show
how
us.
hard it is now. Just think where we can get to when raids come online. And you think it's big on the ground now, just think of the networks you're going to have to go through to conquer these raids. So just bear that in the back of your mind when these do go out.
So let's move into the big question before we lose your time here. A lot of folks, and we knew this. We knew this when we were filming it, and
PvE, PvP.
This idea that PvE and PvP can meet in the same place. this obviously excites some people who are a bit more. What was the aggressive? The aggressive outlaw, unlawful player, kind of licks their chops at this idea, while the non-aggressive lawful player is like, "What?
Yeah.
Are you dumb?" How do we go about that? How is this? How are these things going to merge? Not just in 323 and what we're doing for 323, but long term, because obviously. Because I already know where this is going. All the systems in place are not going to be in place for 323. So talk to me about 323, and then we'll go long term.
Okay. So I think the first thing to bear in mind about distribution centers is they're very varied. So some of them have, some of them will welcome players, some of them won't. But they're also varied in terms of level of security. So some of them will have security at the lower end. If you imagine an extremely well fortified bunker, that's like the lowest level of security for this distribution center. For the highest level of security, you're talking something alongside a rest stop, that kind of level. Lots and lots of turrets, probably a green zone, missile turrets as well. Yeah, they're going to be about as well fortified as we can make them for 323.
Right. So in 323, there's 13.
Well, those turrets don't do shit at rest stops.
Yeah. My understanding is that they come in kind of three flavors.
Yeah.
Maybe they will in atmosphere.
Okay. So
and these aren't the visual thing. These are. This is what we're talking about: how to manage PvE and PvP.
Yeah. This is the broad sort of gameplay kind of flavors. So we've got distribution centers which we're terming friendly. And on the opposite end of the scale, we've got distribution centers which are hostile. And then in between, you have a whole range which are just mixed. There's some combination of all the different factors put together in different levels.
Okay, so what makes a hostile one?
A hostile one, so it's separate to the security level, but a hostile one basically does not welcome players. If you enter, regardless of who you are, what you've done, what your reputation is with any kind of faction, they're going to shoot at you with whatever kind of weaponry they have around. They will
running
have
those
turrets,
places?
they will have trespass
Right.
zones, they will have security guards all over the place.
Ninetales?
Yeah, that's a hostile one.
It's like Chris when he sees me coming.
Okay.
What's the other?
Yeah, maybe.
What's the friendly?
The friendly ones are much more welcoming. They will allow players in, kind of, as long as they have a neutral reputation with the owner, they will allow players in, and you can just go in, you can land, you can request landing access, you can get in the hangar, you can walk around, no restrictions.
You
no
can get
holds
in the
barred,
hangar.
just go wherever you please, no problem.
And my understanding is that in 323, these have an additional layer of security.
Yeah, so the friendly ones are going to be more towards the rest stop level of security.
So with green zones.
With green zones.
All right. So there will for 323, because we don't have
By
the
green
full
zone, does he
law
mean
and
an
order
armistice
system
zone?
towards,
I think
some of these distribution centers will have a green zone.
Yep.
And that'll protect the players who those lawful unaggressive.
Like you can't pull out
players.
FPS
It's like,
weapons?
I'm going to take if I'm going to take a mission.
Yeah. Like if you're in a
I don't think
station or something.
we'll outright tell them which is which. It's one of those things we like people to discover on their own. But you'll discover, okay, missions to this distribution center and this distribution center are safe. It's I can go there. I can be a lawful, unaggressive player and not get harassed and stuff like that. And then there's the
I think
super
this is
aggressive
good
where it's
info.
just
This is answering a
I
lot.
want to be a pain in the ass for somebody and go. And then there'll be the collection of ones in between.
Exactly.
Okay. And that
Just
is, of
having a
course,
green zone there changes a
until-
lot.
Oh yeah.
until the law and order system continues to evolve. Players saw it in the Pyro playground and stuff. Some of these stations were supposed to have faction-oriented NPC guards that are supposed to stop griefing and stuff. That's all part of this law and order system. That's still being developed and still coming online. Additional evolutions to the law system. You're involved in the law. Generally speaking, you're involved in the criminal. What's it called? The law system, the criminality.
Reputation.
What word am I looking for?
I'll say it underworld.
The system that determines whether you're a criminal or not.
Justice?
What? No, we have a. Do we not have a name?
Reputation.
I can't think of the name for it. I'm spacing right now. I'm sorry, guys. But this crime stat. The crime stat system.
Yeah.
Oh.
You know, even that's going to evolve. You know, to the point of having harder crime stats and crime stats that don't entirely wipe away and stuff.
Yeah.
Like that. So or you got rid of your crime stat, but there's a database that still remembers that you had one, and if you start getting too many of them, it's like, well, you know,
You're not wanted right now, but we still we remember the murders.
Yeah.
works.
Yeah.
I think there's a drive to make it make the security side
Killed 300 of our
quite
people.
more,
Never
how can I
forget.
put it, robust in their pursuit of justice and quite more persistent.
And that's the kind of systems
And
we need.
Once you are caught, to make the punishment more severe and fitting. So it's not flat.
No.
It scales.
And I want to say what we're talking about right now is not the theory crafting stuff that we talked about before. There is actually there's actually a very detailed law and order, you kind of plan in place, things that we're working towards. I can't tell you what patch, 1 patch, 2 patch, 3 patch, 4 patch, from now or whatever, whenever it's ready. And
But maybe this year.
But there is
It sounds like maybe.
Obviously, we see what happened. We saw what happened in Pyro Playground. We can see what's happening in a lot of these places with grieving and stuff like this. And there are many things in place.
You said the G word.
People will then naturally ask,
Did
well,
he
why don't
define
you
it,
just tell
though?
us about it? Because we need to try things. We need to try this, and if that doesn't work, then we're going to try this, and if that doesn't work, you're going to try this. You don't just have like one idea. You have an A idea, a B idea, a C idea, and you want to test these things. We just sit there and say we're going to do this, and then we end up not going with A and going with C, and like, well, you told us you were going with A. Well, A didn't work. We had to test it first. So let us continue to do some refinement and work on it, and I promise, like all things, considering that it's literally my job to do so, we will inform and share the design and the intention of it when we feel that it's ready to be done so. But I just want to say that's not the theory crafting. That's on the calendar and stuff. So,
Excellent.
Quick question about
sure.
that.
No, you can't have questions. That's not how the show works.
If, say I'm hauling to a friendly DC and I'm worried that I'm going to get attacked by pirates, in between doing my bit at the DC and going to the other location like a space station, can I theoretically message out to see if anyone can protect me in transit and then maybe offer up some of the goods as payment? Because we don't have the system yet to do that, but there's an opportunity for players to potentially build some trust with one another.
Well, we have the service beacon system that
Yeah, that'd be
allows,
great.
Some aspect of that and stuff like that, and of course that's going to continue to iterate and stuff.
That'd be pretty cool.
Yeah.
But
Just put it
the
out there,
payout has
people.
to be worth it. You can't pay somebody
We
to run
do
security when
tend
you're
to
barely
like
making a profit on what you're
player-oriented
doing.
Solutions whenever possible. All right, so that's
Unless they
about
just want to do it for
guys.
the fun of
That's
it.
all the time I had for you. Thank you.
We don't
for
play
taking
video
the time
games
out
for
of the-
fun
out
around
of the
here.
end of your week. James was
Get
literally
real.
in a call until about 10 minutes before the start of the show, and we had to rush him over here. He was literally presenting to other directors in the company about the current state of this and where it was at and what we still needed to do and stuff like that. In case you think my show is the priority, it's not. Making the game is. So I do appreciate you rushing over here to do the show.
Yeah.
We're going to take a short break, and when we come back, we're going to have an old friend. That made him sound like he's really... That made it sound like you're super old. You're not. He's not super old. I think he's actually younger than I am. He's just been with the project for about as long as any human being. He's here visiting. We're going to have him on the show and talk to him for a little bit. So stay tuned. We'll be right back.
Okay, cool.
That was a lot of DC info.
Yeah, and just everybody watching the React, we're just focusing on the distribution center. No disrespect to the interview in the second part, but we're sticking to the gameplay stuff this week. So yeah, a lot of information there. And again, our previous podcast episode, like you said, that was getting some traction and discussion. one of the big questions that we had was, how are they going to balance the PvE and the PvP? And I feel like they explained that pretty well, that there's going to be different security levels at these places. There are going to be some that are friendly to players, others that are not friendly to players. And so once they get introduced into the game, players will learn, okay, these are the safe ones to go to if I want to have the best bet to not have to engage in any PvP whatsoever, right? And then these are the other ones that I don't go to because I'm not that player that, wants to partake in PvP or at least take the risk of it. So, I mean, it sounds like I don't know how balanced it's still going to be until we actually play, but it does sound like they've kept that in mind and have made these distributions centers very intently to consider all types of players.
Right. Just based on last week's ISC and previous discussions about it, we didn't really, at least I didn't really understand like how they were going to separate these types of missions. I thought, you'll be hauling to these different places and then like somebody's going to come in for a raid or assassination mission or whatever. But it sounds like that, if you're at a safer one, hauling stuff, doing whatever, and somebody gets a mission for, saying, assassinating a VIP or whatever there. When they come in, there's going to be turret fire. There's going to be, missiles going off, explosions. So they're probably not just going to sneak in there and start killing all the players there or whatever. So it sounds like they're pretty diversified. And there's like, what they said, 13 of them?
13, yeah.
So, yeah, because I thought, there might be 4 or 5. So with all this new gameplay going on, there was going to be a lot of people at those 4 or 5 locations, but it sounds like with 13, probably spread out a lot more, and I'm sure they'll add more too. So
sure, and there's when these first hit, there's going to be a huge amount of players wanting to check them out. But as I don't want to say they're going to be less populated significantly after that, but players are going to go off and do other stuff too outside of the DCs. Like I know they want them to be pretty well trafficked hubs of activity in the game, but still, I mean, some people are going to go off and do some ERTs, or they're going to go off and run some bunkers instead, or they're going to go do the 890 mission, or they're going to go do some salvaging out in space, or what. It's not like the whole server at all times are going to be at these DCs. So.
Yeah, and I don't know, I might have to go back and watch our episode and stuff, but it seemed like some people were thinking that we don't want to see player interaction at these locations, or we consider valid pirating, stealing, ransom, stuff like that. We see that as valid gameplay, and we want these interactions. We want people to interact like that.
We both have alt criminal accounts. We don't use them much, right, but we are both interested in criminal gameplay.
Yeah, and when I play other games like DayZ, for example, I bring it up a lot in our conversations, but in that game, I 9 times out of 10, I know I'm probably going to die, and I usually do die, but if I come upon a random person, I try and interact with them. I don't just shoot to kill, because the right, player interactions in video games is one of my favorite parts, because I've, sometimes it goes bad, I die, I have to kill them, one way or the other, but sometimes it works out and we go on an adventure together, and those have been some of my favorite gaming moments ever. So they turn into cool stories. Looking forward. Yeah, I'm looking forward to that player interaction, and I feel like the distribution centers are gonna bring that together. But CIG, we got to get VoIP working, please. So I'm excited for him. Don't get it wrong. I'm excited for him.
Don't get it twisted. And we'll talk about that more on our next episode of the podcast as well. But did you have anything else that you wanted to say about SEL here?
I like the fact that they're kind of talking about adding, bases on the edge of them, or towns or roads or whatever, because like with the underground bunkers now, it's just a building and there's people there. But you don't, where do these people live? Where do they commute to this location? Are they living here? Where's their houses? Where's their ships they fly? Where's their vehicles? Like, where do they go for food? What do they do? So we always talk about immersion in Star Citizen, and that's one thing that's always kind of brought me out of my immersion is these just randomly dropped places with there's people there, but there's nothing around, and you don't really understand like where they come from. And so, adding towns on the edge and where these people live and work and play and everything in between, I think will really help bring that together.
Yeah, because we've talked about over the years here and there that some of these, and it's a thought that keeps popping in my head anytime I think about the immersion of Star Citizen, with the exception of ArcCorp, which is all city, all over the planet. But in terms of like both Hurston and Microtech, you have the major landing zones in Lorville and New Babbage. And then that's basically it, other than some bunkers. And in more recent time, they've started to include some outposts as well. But there's still this sense of, did somebody start to found this planet, build one big city, and then they were like, all right, that's good. Because that's not typically how humans work here on Earth, right? Like you start off with maybe one central location, but then people expand out and they start to build smaller towns, and then those towns start to become cities, and you get more towns popping up, and so on and so forth. And right now in the game, these planets, especially since we also don't have fauna in the game either, they feel dead outside of a handful of areas.
Yeah, and I think we've talked about it before. Player base building might kind of help.
Yes,
with that feeling of the planets being dead, but that's a whole other conversation altogether. But yeah,
but I think it is it's one piece of this puzzle that we're talking about, though, as far as like making the planets feel more alive. Between the landing zones, between now the outposts, the bunkers, the coming distribution centers, and then further down the line with player outposts, I think all of that will start to add up to make it feel more vibrant when you're planet side. And that's just one more reason to kind of build the hype for distribution centers, because I think they play a function in that way as well, outside of just the fact that we're going to get some added content for our gameplay loops.
Yep.
But
that's all I've
basically all I had for this one too. Yeah. So thanks everybody for checking us out during this CommLink React. I enjoyed what we watched of this Star Citizen Live. I don't know. I wish maybe they talked a little bit more specifically about the 323 implementation. But they did give us a decent chunk of info in this one. So I'm walking away from this one satisfied, I think, overall.
Yeah, and now on to master modes.
Yep. All right, so everybody, if you enjoyed this edition of CommLink Reacts, we try to do these pretty consistently between ISC, between Star Citizen Live, and then also we'll go back into the archives from time to time and check out some older videos there as well, which we kind of should get back to at some point, because there's still some Squadron 42 ones that are worthwhile. But regardless, if you enjoyed this edition, go ahead, hit that like button. Go ahead, hit that subscribe button. The algorithm loves it, and it's a good feeling when we see it pop up. And also, that way you'll get more of us in your feed, because we do these reaction videos. And if you're new to the channel, we also have the podcast, which we've alluded to a few times here, the CommLink Podcast, found both on our YouTube channel and on Spotify. And then we also do a series called CommLink Alert, which is when major articles are posted up on the RSI website, like monthly reports. Those are essentially audiobook versions of those articles where I just read them aloud. There's no really additional commentary or anything like that. It's just, if you would prefer to hear it than read it, we got you covered there. So anything else?
All right. No, thanks, Stubb. Thanks, everybody. And
thank
we'll see
you
you next time.
Absolutely. Until next time, everybody, be safe and stay well. Ciao, ciao.